Okay.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon.
Good afternoon, indeed. It's morning for me.
Yes. So here we are, back after a 2-month break. Enjoying the summer. We've just been to a record fair in Whitstable.
Yep.
Which was very successful, actually. I'm sure we'll be sharing the fruits of that next time we get together. So yeah, here we are. Anybody who doesn't regularly watch these videos and wondering who these two blokes are, we have for many years got together pretty much every month and just had a music listening and sharing experience. And after a while, we thought it'd be quite nice to share what we've been listening to. So here we are.
Yeah.
So we kicked off yesterday's listening session with a track from Burial. So I'd been watching a YouTube channel called Resident Advisor, which seems to specialise in electronic music stuff, and they'd made a video about the making of this album. And I was aware of Burial, and I had one of the tracks, I think, on a dubstep soul jazz compilation. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Anyway, I wasn't really that aware of this album, which came out, I think, in 2008, UK. Burial was a sort of mysterious character who I think has now revealed himself and is a Southeast Londoner. And he specialised in this kind of really original hybrid of, I guess, sort of techno dubstep, but not really as dubstep has turned out. But these very kind of snatches of ethereal voices and very heavily reverb drenched soundscapes. Very kind of moody and sort of made to be listened to when you're standing in a McDonald's in Woolwich, I think, at about 2 a.m. Anyway, great music. It sounded fantastic. We'd been listening to the new Autophon Bronze cartridge, which hadn't been working properly last time John was here, and definitely we're getting full sonic scape.
Yeah, it was very good.
Of all frequencies. Great album. If you don't know, it's a double album you can get for £12 in the UK.
I should say, when I come to these sessions, I bring just one box of records with me. So sometimes my choices seem a bit off. Sometimes they're bang on, sometimes they're a bit arbitrary to follow up. But I followed up that with Tortoise from a 7-inch single, which has Why We Fight on one side, and the track I played, which is called Whitewater, on the other side. And there was something about the texture of the Burial track that made me think of this, which is very scratchy sounding. Mostly Moog with virtually nothing else, a bit of thudding drums in the background. But both these tracks were not on any of the Tortoise albums. I think they might have popped up on a couple of compilations, but very kind of, I'm always interested in this band, actually. They always do good stuff, actually.
They both had sort of a lot of staticky record fluff sound. I mean, a bit deliberately sampled to make it sound like that. And also, a big hello to anybody who is a fan of Roger Coleman, YouTube stalwart, as are we, really.
Yeah.
But I thank you, Roger, for a very positive message about this channel, and we obviously always love watching what you share as well. Glad that you
Chris
do
Watson as well.
Yes, and like the Chris Watson. So we had a brand new Jeff Mills album. Now, Jeff Mills, a Detroit techno pioneer who I was not really that conscious of until I got this EP that came out earlier in the year on Blue Note, which was a collaboration with Tony Allen, the Afrobeat drummer, and Phil. And again, it was watching a YouTube video of Jeff Mills in full effect DJing, and he's incredible, like a really sort of very sort of active DJ guy, like lots of tweaking of EQ, very sort of dynamic. And this is an album he's just put out to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And we listened to a tune called Lunar Power. Again, very wide on the frequency soundstage, a lot of very big bass going on. Sounded good.
True pioneer, definitely. From something techno-ish to something a bit more housey orientated. And Express 2, who of course were a UK based outfit, and went for their single, which was called Give It, which was featuring Kurt Wagner from Lamb Chop, who's a bit of a favourite of mine, as people who've watched his videos know before. Kind of very epic sounding, kind of, I think it was almost possibly their last album they ever released, actually. But interesting lineup, including Ashley Beadle from the UK, who's a very good DJ.
And Rocky and Diesel.
And this was kind of starts off as a house, almost like some housey thing, and ends up sounding something like Talking Heads by the end of it.
Absolutely.
And if you ever check out the animation for this, but it really was award-winning animation on YouTube that went with it. Absolutely fantastic. So Express 2, Give It.
Just to say, John and I are both drinking a cup of Yorkshire tea.
Yes.
So
we're not laced with any alcohol at all.
No, so we're always trying to find the connections between records, and that can sometimes be directly to do with who's playing on it, who produced it. And sometimes it's just to do with the sounds and sonics, and certainly the backing vocals on that Express 2 track reminded me of the lovely Mary Clayton vocal on Gimme Shelter from Let It Bleed, Rolling Stones, with that lovely Delia Smith cake on the front.
Was it a Delia Smith?
Yeah, Delia Smith baked that cake.
Fantastic.
For all you Delia Smith fans out there.
And Norwich won yesterday, football.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, what can you say? But just such an evocative track, those first few bars of Gimme Shelter, just a spine-tingling, I always think.
I think although Exile on Main Street is my favourite record, I think that's my favourite track. Something about there was some slide guitar happening on Exile on Gimme Shelter, and that kind of made me think of Manassas. I think I've showed this years ago, probably right at the beginning when we were doing VCs, but this is a Stephen Stills band he put together kind of in between one of the breaks where Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young weren't happening. Fantastic band. Chris Hillman, Dallas Taylor, Al Perkins, Joe Lala, various other people as well. Just a real proper band, and this is a classic record. Just starting weirdly to get the recognition it deserved, really, 40 years after it came out. And I played the first track, Song of Love, of this as well. And each side has got a completely different kind of mood to it, but great musicianship, great songwriting. Proper group.
Great songwriting and great musicianship, I guess, was the connection, and they're from the States, of course. This is an album that I remember picking up as a teenager, Best of the Doobie Brothers, when there was a lot of best of albums. You don't sort of see them so often anymore, but the track Taking It to the Streets, written by Michael McDonald, just it turned out to be a yacht rock classic. Of course, that genre didn't even exist at all until fairly recently, but just great sort of polished, soulful funk pop.
Yeah, he does a wonderful voice, really.
Yeah, beautiful voice.
This was a recent find from a very good eBay seller who suddenly appeared randomly, and I don't often buy stuff from eBay actually, but he just had a really interesting selection of stuff. And I'd heard this track on, I think, WFMU in the States, and it's cover version of Cajun Moon, the J.J. Cale song by Herbie Mann band with Cissy Houston, who was of course Whitney's mum, singing vocals on it. It's a really nice version of it.
Really lovely, beautiful production.
Very weird record actually. There's a cover of Creeping as well, the Stevie Wonder track, but there's some very interesting stuff on here. Herbie Mann, always kind of something. He's always got some kind of concept going on for most of his records, and this one has what usually are very dodgy reggae tracks recorded by Americans, but this one actually works quite well as well. So the album's called Surprises, Herbie Mann featuring Cissy Houston from '76, and definitely recommend Cajun Moon.
I'm just going to plug my radio show because I'm aware that many people stop watching after a few minutes of our rather extended VC music sharing session. So if you like the kind of range of music that we share, I do a weekly radio show which you can listen to live or listen to at any time on Mixcloud. I'll leave a link underneath the video. But
Very highly recommended.
Plug is over. And another great sounding record, actually. I think that was really the production which was making me think of this Wes Montgomery Down Here on the Ground album. Sort of the dawn of the CTI label, really. And just an incredible lineup. Grady Tate on drums, Ron Carter on the bass, Herbie Hancock on the piano, Ray Barretto on percussion, Mike Maneri on vibes, arranged and conducted by Diodato. John was telling me that this was very controversial at the time, that Wes wasn't too keen on being surrounded by strings, but it's a beautiful sounding record. We listened to the first track on side 2, which is called Going On to Detroit.
Yeah, sounds great. Sometimes it's what the listeners think.
Exactly.
I've been listening to quite a lot of Patrice Rushen recently in all her various guises, and I was pleased to pick this up for a very little small amount of money in what was a local record shop to where I grew up, actually. And it's a John Luke Ponty record called Aurora, featuring a great band with Tom Fowler from Frank Zappa, Mother's Invention, Daryl Sturmer on guitar, and Patrice Rushen playing on this track I played, which is called Renaissance, playing great piano solo on there as well, actually. I mean, she could really do everything, actually. In fact, what I didn't do was play the new Strut collection of Patrice Rushen.
Which you bought?
I bought with me, yeah. I've been playing them with it. But anyway, highly recommended. And I think she's somebody else who's finally getting the kind of prop she deserved, actually. She was always overshadowed by Herbie and everybody else, but she's a great player.
Okay, this is a brand new reissue that's, I think, I've heard about it via Mr. Bongo. It seems to be on the Altacat label. It's a sort of Brazilian psych folk prog album called Carioca and Devas, the Misterios da Amazona, and seems to mainly feature one guy, De Ronaldo L. Freitas Carioca, I think. I'm not very good on my Portuguese, but very different sounding album. Apparently he was very involved in doing cover versions of Genesis and sort of prog rock stuff in Brazil. I think this was recorded in the early 80s and has just seen a reissue very recently, so I'm sure it's not going to hang around. But very hard to describe, but sort of psych prog Brazilian folk.
A little bit of Milton Nascimento.
Bit of Milton Nascimento, actually. There was a Milton Nascimento connection coming up. Yeah, so Misterios da Amazonia.
Very nice.
Yeah.
New one on me, that was, actually. I'm not sure what the connection was with this, but I moved on to Roy Haynes from one of his 70s albums, kind of very unfashionable 70s albums, really.
Extremely unfashionable
really unfashionable cover. Played the track Quiet Fire, with which has a small band with George Cable's system of being Kenneth Nash, but are making a lot of noise, basically. I mean, it's basically a drumming track, this track.
Amazing
very
tune.
exciting.
Yeah.
And I think it was quite a big track on the jazz dance scene, actually, when that was around, actually. I think it was used by dancers quite a lot in the UK when that whole thing blew up the first time around. So Roy Haynes from the album Thank You, and the track was called Quiet Fire, and it came out in 1977 on Galaxy Records, which I think was part of Fantasy. But good record all round, actually. It's got the other tracks have got Bobby Hutcherson and Ron Carter and people on as well. But nice record despite the cover, quite dodgy cover, or very dodgy cover.
Well, I've just come away from a week on holiday with the family, and we went to Bridport in Dorset for a day out, and I discovered, well, actually I'd been there before, a fantastic record shop, which unfortunately I can't remember what it was called, but if you Google Bridport record shops, I think you'll find it, and got a number of albums that I'd never seen before, including this one. This is another fantastic keyboard player who, again, I think is probably going to be getting the recognition she deserves probably slightly later in the day. Jerry Allen.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Open on all sides. This is from, I think, mid-80s, I think. And we listened to it, but actually my connection was with the Milton Nascimento thing. It was a Milton Nascimento track called, or dedicated to him, called In the Morning. And it sort of has Jerry Allen sort of dipping into the sort of electronic keyboard sound.
Didn't do that much at all, really.
No, and with it's very difficult to work out who's actually on this, but it was kind of a lot of the Steve Coleman kind of M-bass crew, and it's a great album. Again, I've only just listened to it a couple of times, but it sounded great.
She was a real talent. Died much too young.
Yeah.
This I didn't buy in Bridport. This I bought in Los Angeles in a kind of hardware store, I think, years and years and years ago. Anyway, this is Alphonso Johnson Moonshadows album, Moonshadows, which I think was his first solo album. Alphonso Johnson, bass player, obviously with Weather Report and also with the Billy Cobham George Duke Band, and played the track Up From the Cellar, which I've always really loved, actually. It's kind of almost like it's the first part of it almost sounds like a kind of Headhunters style kind of funk track. Then it goes into this almost like prog ending on it, which is epic anyway.
But with a Brazilian flavour.
With a Brazilian flavour as well, with Flora Purim singing on it. So great album. Again, featuring all our favourites, George Duke. Teresa Russian again on this one, and Ndugu, but really good one actually. These later ones weren't so good rate, I didn't think. I didn't quite like the later ones.
No,
so
when he was playing a stick.
Yeah.
I think we had our traditional break for a Portuguese tart and returned with the title track from the brand new Esperanza Spalding album, which has been released on Concord and is called 12 Little Spells, and is a beautifully packaged double album. John immediately sort of saw a Zappa connection. As sort of
there was something about that. I think Zappa's weirdly influencing a lot of contemporary black music at the moment, actually, rather than rock music, which is kind of interesting. Get the with the Thundercat connection as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every track very different, extremely sort of out there, experimental. I mean, not sort of difficult to listen to, but just not sort of following any particular genre path, and not really sound like anything else that's out there. And that's continually the path of Esperanza Spalding, who we were saying is a bit like a Michelle Ndegeocello in the sense that she doesn't seem to want to conform to what people expect or necessarily want her to do. She keeps ploughing her own path, and it's a great path.
Really good path. Yeah. Talk about somebody playing their own path. This was my birthday present actually, back in May from Mark. The album by Akiko Yano called Japanese Girl, which came out in the late 70s, I think it was. Very unusual record. One side features Little Feat, the band Little Feat, and the other side features a Japanese group. And she's a kind of songwriter, musician, very hard to describe, actually. I mean, it's kind of, obviously, the Japanese side includes elements of pop music, but also things like gagaku and other Japanese forms as well. And that, although I like the Little Feat side, that's my favourite side, actually. And I played the track, which is called Hikoro Puta. Sorry, no, huge apologies to anybody who's Japanese speakers. And this is a nice re-release on We Want Sounds, beautifully done, great big thick cover, and really interesting record actually. And there was something about the kind of the unusual nature of it. I think following up from the Esperanza record that made me think of it. Anyway, thank you. Nice birthday present. Thank you very much.
Sounded really good.
Really enjoying it.
Yeah. A record which I'm sure many people have already got or know about is the new Tom York, Anima. Very nice double vinyl on beautiful orange vinyl actually. Sounds incredible, I have to say. Really was, again, getting the speakers really showing what they could do. We listened to the track Twist, which I think is the first track on side 2. And it's, just a continuing extension of that sort of Tom York and Nigel Godrich, I think, as the producer. Very sort of significant collaborator in this journey. I really love this album. I think it's fantastic. Everything is multi-layered and really interesting, and just original.
Sounds a bit more finished to me than the other Tom York albums as well. So we gave the speakers a rest after that.
Yes.
Played a CD, which kind of but thinking really of kind of UK interesting experimental pop and rock music, and thinking of the influence of Scott Walker, actually, who obviously we had a little tribute to a few sessions ago, but also going back to the Walker Brothers and the album Night Flights from the early 70s, I guess, mid 70s. Last album the Walker Brothers did, and the track called Night Flights on here, which was covered by David Bowie later on, and you can really hear the influence of this on later period Bowie. Anyway, so Walker, I mean, it's a great album, this one. First side's brilliant, the second side is absolutely terrible. So if you ever buy this on vinyl, never turn it over. Really, only play side one. The Walker Brothers.
So, unsurprisingly, we went for a David Bowie track from Aladdin Sane, which I remember getting when it came out. And actually, just listening to that title track and the sort of avant-garde Mike Garson piano playing, and Bowie's playing sax on it, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, pretty wild as a 11-year-old, I think. Or I can't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young. But really getting into this still sounds great. It's I think a kind of underrated Bowie album.
It really pissed people off when it came out, I can remember.
Because it wasn't.
Yeah, but it wasn't Ziggy, really.
No.
And it was and I think it made us think about how often some of the best artists just like pissing their fans off.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I'm not sure why I ended up playing the Byrds after Bowie, but maybe we started getting a bit freeform by this. This has always been my favourite Byrds record, Notorious Byrd Brothers from probably 1968. The album that kind of where they really started to, for me, just kind of click, actually. They had some great single songs before, but never produced an album that kind of was great. And played 2 tracks, actually. Played Draft Morning and Wasn't Born to Follow as a bit of a tribute to Peter Fonda from the Easy Rider Connection. And this was an album that still had David Crosby partly in the band and also had Gene Clark partly in the band. But also had some of the newer people who were coming in, like Clarence White and others as well. So yeah, lots of stories about David Crosby and the horse, but we won't go into that now. It's a family show.
Yeah. Just got to say, it would be lovely to see some of our old VC faves back on. I'm thinking Big Star and Chris 1427 Basket and Ben Costello, John Coltrane.
Yeah.
68.
86
Anyway.
will be.
Yeah. That was just a little
Yeah,
reminder,
again,
guys.
let's come back, guys.
Come back. Harmonies. That was what this was about. We listened to the track You Can Close Your Eyes. This is James Taylor, Mudslime Slim, and the Blue Horizon, and just a beautiful, very short but perfectly formed, harmony-laden song.
Yeah, definitely.
John was talking about James Taylor trying to inject himself in his eyeball.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
he was a
that's-
fairly heavy drug taker at one
Yep.
point of his life. Thinking of kind of gentle Americana, I guess, really, and thinking of never need much of an excuse to play Bill Frisell, really. And this was the vinyl reissue of, issue, because it never came out on vinyl originally, of Good Dog, Happy Man from a few years ago, which sounds amazing, actually, beautiful sound. And I played the track My Buffalo Girl. This was a kind of, there's no kind of chops being on display here, really, apart from very subtly on display, actually. This is not a kind of flashy album, with Wayne Horvitz, Greg Lease, Victor Krauss, and the great Jim Keltner as well on drums on it. Beautiful job they did on it as well, none such. And they've started to reissue a bunch of his stuff, which was never issued on CD originally. Made me think actually how a lot of producers who were very good producers but happened to work in the CD age never really got a chance to hear some of their stuff. And now it's good that some, you can really hear how good the actual production was, really, by having stuff issued on vinyl. This is now going for an insane amount of money, I've noticed. But I think as these things are reissued, they're definitely worth picking up, actually.
So it was the organ playing. Who was the guy up on the
Wayne
organ?
Horvitz.
Wayne Horvitz. Yes, got me thinking. Well, I've been thinking about Booker T. Jones for a number of reasons. One of which is that I've been really enjoying the Stuart Cosgrove Music and Politics trilogy, which starts in Detroit '67, moves to Memphis '68, and then New York '69, and a highly recommended trilogy of fantastic books that I think more people need to know
they
about.
really are special.
And clearly Booker T. Jones being a key player in the Memphis and Stax sound, and I didn't really know what a kind of prodigy he was and how significant he was. Anyway, this album came out, I think in 2011. This was a solo Booker T. Album, but produced by Questlove from The Roots, and I hadn't listened to it for a while, and I kind of just picked the track Everything Is Everything. It sounded absolutely fantastic. It was sort of like The Roots backing Booker T. Jones.
Yeah.
Really great.
I last saw Booker T. Jones playing with Neil Young.
Ah.
Obviously, he had a band with that, and I'm pretty sure with Questlove in the audience.
Right.
It's way back. Not sure. Again, I think we were getting soulful and gospelly orientated. I think at this point,
And a bit of funk.
and a bit of funk as well.
Was
And went
creeping in,
funk-
finally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we hadn't really got funky until
No.
then. And just went for this was from I bought this the last vinyl revival back 20, 30 years ago, which a lot of vinyl started coming out. Anyway, this is Graham Central Station, their first record, I think, wasn't it? Actually, or was it the second?
I'm not sure.
And played the track called I Believe in You, which is just a
Really
really
good.
sly flavoured,
Sly infused.
fused track, actually. Underrated band, Graham Central Station, I think, in a weird kind of way. I mean, they were very popular at the time, but I don't see many people hearing or talking about them now, actually.
No, although when I saw Prince at the Hop Farm
Was
festival,
Larry Graham with them?
Larry Graham was the support band, Graham Central Station.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is a very unexciting cover. I don't even have a cover for it. It's just an inner sleeve. But we were feeling the funk, and I had just been clearing through some records and was reminded that I need to find a sleeve for this. This is Tony Cook and the Party People, and a track from about 1983, I think, called On the Floor, in brackets Rocket, produced by Timmy Regisford, and absolutely at the axis point where sort of early electro hip hop funk and almost techno. I mean, it was very, very stripped down, really just drum machine, vocoder, vocal effects, and synth bass with a little bit of keyboards. But it sounded great. And
No samples like that.
No samples, very fresh sounding, and quite a rare record apparently. Yeah.
So keeping with the funk, went for an outlying kind of P-Funk record by Godmama, which is called Godmama Here, and played the track called Godmama Here. And this is a band produced by Bootsy, and they were properly a band as well. This wasn't a studio creation. And at the same time, very, very funky, amazingly complex kind of vocal harmonies and horn charts on this as well, kind of interweaving. But it kind of recorded and made around the same time as you made the Sweatband record, which I think we showed at the last session. So this was early 80s, 1981, but really kind of great. And Bootsy on drums again. Bootsy's almost as good a drummer as he was a bass player, actually. Yeah, kind of hard to find this one, but notice it's been popping up on YouTube a bit recently as well, which has been nice as well.
I think we may well have had a break again, and so a couple of purchases from the Bridport record shop were 2 Tubby Hayes records. Now Tubby Hayes is somebody who I've heard about, but I've not really actively listened to, and I was just really knocked out by what an amazing, well, both sax and vibe player he was, because he died in the early 70s, I think.
In the 80s, I think, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I think he got through in just about into the 80s.
Right. But an amazing UK jazz artist, really, and incredibly dexterous on that's just so sort of fluid, really amazing player. And we listened to the first track on Tubby's Groove with the Tubby Hayes Quartet, which was called Tin Tin Deo. There was a little bit of and I interestingly recorded round the corner from where I used to live at the Decca Studios in Broadhurst Gardens. Yeah.
And this next record was also recorded in the Decca Studios in Broadhurst Gardens.
Ah.
And this is a slightly later Tubby Hayes record, big band record called 100% Proof, with a kind of, at that point, basically the cream of UK jazz musicians, Kenny Wheeler and Ronnie Scott, Gordon Beck, Jeff Klein, and a whole load of people on it. And we played his really great arrangement of Milestones, the Miles track on here as well. Yeah, and I saw he had a television show, Tubby Hayes, which was quite weird. I think there was a weekly television show for a period in the UK, which unfortunately there are no tapes left of, because the BBC scrapped them all. But I saw him live a few times as well. He was tremendous.
And the third in our trilogy of Tubby Hayes tunes was from the Tubby Hayes Orchestra. It's a very similar time and lineup, Tubbs Tours, and we listened to the track called Sasa Hivi, which was dedicated to Africa and written and arranged by Peter King. And again, fantastic playing.
Yeah.
Make sure you investigate Tubby Hayes. I know there's an album that's just come out, a sort of undiscovered, unreleased.
That's right.
Or it has
And
been
Mole
discovered.
Jazz, which was a small independent record label based around a
King's Cross.
record shop in King's Cross. I mean, their stuff is really good, actually. Really sounds good.
And they released that.
Yeah. Now, Shabaka Hutchins is somebody we talked about quite a lot on
Yes.
these videos and so forth. And there was recently in the UK magazine there was a review of what's your favourite Blue Note record, and Shabaka.
John, come over here.
Shabaka.
You're not there.
I'm not there. And Shabaka, I thought delightfully, said rather than going for the usual suspects, moaning and all those kind of things, went for this record by Greg Osby, which never came out on LP, was a CD recorded on a mini disc in front of the band live in a club. And he said this has got an amazing atmosphere, this record, and he was obsessed with it for years and years and years. And I been obsessed with it for years as well. So it's branded in New York, Greg Osby, on Blue Note, only on CD with Jason Moran and Rodney Green, and I can't remember who else is on the record actually. But a really great quartet, very, very atmospheric, great sound on it as well. Fiery, very fiery record actually. And so yeah, just saying it's not about having 180 gram mint pressings, it's about the music.
Indeed. Staying with Blue Note recordings that maybe people aren't so aware of. This is from the 1988. The drummer Ralph Peterson and the Ralph Peterson Quintet. The album, I think, just called 5 or V. And a similar sort of fiery mix. A second appearance from Jerry Allen, Terence Blanchard on the trumpet, Steve Wilson on the sax, Phil Bowler on the bass. But incredible drumming, actually, from Ralph Peterson. I mean, really, definitely goes nicely with the Roy Haynes track. In fact, might play the two on the show on Monday. Great. I wasn't really too aware of this album, but very cheap and worth picking up.
He's about the closest of sounding to Tony Williams, I think.
Yeah, explosive drumming.
Explosive drumming.
Absolutely.
Now, talking about drummers, went for a very young drummer on this one.
Yes.
I think he was only 11 at the time, but went for Ornette's Empty Foxhole record on Blue Note with Charlie Hayden and his son, Ornette Donato Coleman, on drums, who I think was only 11 at the time. 10 or 11, very, very young, and that's a picture of him on the back. And it's a beautiful record, actually. I mean, obviously, he's not a virtuoso drummer at that age, and playing kind of quite unusual kind of fills and so forth on the drums. But there's some great compositions on. He made 2 or 3 records with his son. I think this talk about pissing people off. This enraged people when this came out. I mean, you read back on some of the reviews of this, and people were going apoplectic about it. Basically, a 10-year-old drummer on Blue Note, appalling. But it's a beautiful record actually, and the compositions on this record are great as well. And I think it opened up a whole new. It's about challenging yourself as a musician. It's not about doing the same old thing over and over again. And this is great. Empty Foxhole, bit of a classic again. I think about to be reissued one more time as well. In the next batch.
I was able to choose from a selection of records that were owned by my wife's uncle recently, who died sadly earlier this year. Sorry, something's just popped up from my sister there in the middle of the video. Anyway, this is Bill Evans. This is a sort of later version of the trio. Eddie Gomez on bass and Marty Morell on the drums. And we listened to the track 34 Skidoo. A lot more kind of, well, you were saying almost more aggressive sort of sound, but very different from the kind of Waltz for Debbie era. Bill Evans, I think he'd been through quite a lot by this stage.
It's interesting. By the time he went back, he did one of the last things he recorded was going back to the British Vanguard and recording another set of, and he was playing much more aggressively by then as well. Still great.
It's different.
Talking about great pianists, went for Steve Kuhn from his album Trance, which was on ECM. I think this is an American copy, and it's got a slightly different cover, I think, to the European version. And had a band with Steve Swallow on electric bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, and Sue Evans on percussion, who was a very good percussionist. Actually, he's on quite a few Gil Evans records, although they're not related. And played the track Something Everywhere. And on this, he plays electric piano rather than acoustic piano. And he was really a bit of a fusion pioneer who never really got much kind of attention. Of course, he was also playing the first pianist in John Coltrane's quartet before McCoy Tyner came along. So Steve Kuhn, still playing now, still playing really well.
Great. Amazing sort of Steve Swallow's picked bass.
Yeah, the ridiculously fast.
Ridiculously fast, sort of fast samba with a picked bass.
Yeah.
Which is kind of very different sounding. Well, we always like to drop a reggae tune somewhere in our session. And we always like to shout out to Doug in Canada. And this is Baba Boom, Jack Russell from Duke Reed's Golden Hits. Bit of classic rocksteady. Sounded.
Presumably not a dog, Jack Russell.
I don't imagine he's a dog. Actually, no, it isn't Jack Russell. That's the publisher. I don't know who was it. Let's find out. Oh, it's the Jamaicans. Yes, Jack Russell was the publisher.
Okay. We get into a kind of our wind down zone now, and we have to.
Bloody hell! Look how long this video is.
We have a long video. Sorry about this, folks. We're rambling on, but we don't often make them these days.
Well, this is the makes up for the.
It does.
The lack of a video.
Absolutely, we have to show our holiday photographs. So, as much as we need a reggae track, we also need a Tom Bell produced soul track, really, as well. Almost goes with it. And went for the Spinners, which was, I think, was the second album, New and Improved, and played the track Sitting on Top of the World. I mean, if Spinners' classic vocal group, absolutely wonderful. This was from the UK issue, which had to call them Destroyed Spinners, because there's another group called Spinners. So anyway, I mean, these cost you kind of, $1, half a buck,
yeah,
£50 to pick up anywhere, and they're great music.
And big shout out to Mellow Man,
yeah,
who I know loves those kind of vocal harmony groups.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I gave a signal to John with this tune. This was another tune. In fact, the tune was played, as my wife reminded me, at the funeral of her uncle, and this was his record, and the track was "The Party's Over," which I was there, and that had a huge amount of significance at the time. Beautiful Nat King Cole track. I just love his voice. It's kind of quite, I don't know, just beautiful.
You can do
effortless.
Yeah, gorgeous. You can do a lot with your kind of funeral playlist, can't you?
Can.
Actually, I'm working on mine at the moment. Actually. Not that I'm planning to die, but I'm getting on with it. Went for just great singing, really. And Sarah Vaughan from the album Swing Easy, which I think was from the late 50s. Must have been the late 50s. And second appearance of the evening from Roy Haynes as well, playing drums in a very different way on this track, actually. The ultimate restraint rather than full on. One of her great Mercury albums, really. MRC albums, rather. And gorgeous cover as well, actually. Really stylishly photographed cover. So Sarah Vaughan, Swing Easy, played the track Probably to Kiss the Ellington.
Yeah. My final tune was actually also purchased from a record fair, I think in Whitstable, actually, I'm thinking. But not this time, maybe a couple of years ago. Caetano Veloso, this album has just been reissued, or is about to be reissued. This is the album he recorded when he was basically had to flee Brazil and was hanging out in London. I think at one stage living with Terry Reid. And we listened to the only track which he sings in Portuguese on this tune, which is called Asa Branca, which is absolutely beautiful and possibly one of this and the next track from my personal favourites of the whole session.
Yeah, wonderful. It's such a creative time that was as well. Also wonder how Caetano thinks about what's happening in Brazil now. Actually, it must be devastating. So even though he died a while ago, we haven't had a chance to give a little contribute to João Gilberto, who of course is one of my absolute favourite artists of all time. And I think this is my favourite João Gilberto album. This is the one that was actually recorded by Walter / Wendy Carlos at the time as well. And it has quite an odd production sound as well. It sounds like it's almost I remember a review saying it almost sounds like it's recorded inside of João's mouth, actually. It's so intimate. But a beautiful record. And I played the track El Preciso Perdão, I think it is, which is the fourth track on the second side of it. Just absolutely stripped down João guitar and a little bit of percussion in the background. But what an artist, God.
That was such a nice kind of connection with the Caetano.
Yeah.
Who also was making some incredible mouth
music.
Music, yes.
Yeah.
So, well, that was a marathon.
Yeah.
If you hung in till now, well done. And we'll just keep sharing the music, sharing the love.
Definitely.
And we'll see you tune into the show. And hopefully see you in a month.
Yeah. Best wishes, everybody.
Bye.